There's a link between periodic behavior and trigonometry. Here I have a function y equals the sine of x. I can make a graph of that. The sine of 0 degrees is 0. The sine of 90 degrees is 1. And if I use my calculator to calculate the sine of 180 degrees, I find that it's 0. If I plug in the sine of 270 degrees, it's -1. The sine of 360 degrees is 0. So you can see I have a periodic function. It's just going to keep repeating. Up and down forever. I can do the same thing if I graphed y equals the cosine of x. I plug in my numbers, and I can put my points on my graph. And when I draw a smooth curve through my points, I see another function that looks kind of like a wave. So the graphs of sine x and cosine of x look very similar. And they both follow periodic behavior. They fluctuate back and forth in a repeating pattern. And we can compare both of these functions. The period refers to the length of one complete cycle. If I look at my sine curve, I'm starting when x is 0, and to find the length of one cycle, I need to figure out how long does it take before this pattern starts to repeat again. So starting at x equals 0, I can see that the curve starts to go up. So I need to find the point where the curve starts at 0 and goes up again. And you can see that happens at this point. So the period starts at 0 and goes all the way to 360 degrees. If I look at my cosine curve, I can see, well, I'm starting when x is 0, the curve starts to go down, so I need to find the same spot where the curve starts to go down again. Well, that's right here. So for both of these, the period is 360 degrees. The maximum and minimum values I can see for the sine curve, the maximum value, it never gets higher than 1, and it never gets lower than -1. If I look at my cosine curve, the maximum value is 1, and the minimum value is -1. So for both of these functions, the maximum value is 1, and the minimum value is -1. The amplitude refers to the distance between the central axis and the maximum or minimum values. So if I look at my sine curve, I can see that this is my central axis, right on the x-axis. The distance between that and the maximum or the minimum is the same. It's just a distance of 1 unit. If I look at my cosine curve, here's my central axis. The amplitude is 1. So for both of these functions, the amplitude is 1. And if you like formulas, you can use this formula to calculate the amplitude. The amplitude is the maximum minus the minimum divided by 2. For both of these, the maximum was 1, the minimum was -1, so that ends up being an amplitude of 1. So you can see that both of these functions have a curved form that looks kind of like a wave. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Any function is called sinusoidal if it has the curved form of a sine or a cosine wave. So if it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and it just keeps repeating, that's called a sinusoidal function. And all sinusoidal functions will have sine or cosine in their equations.